ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, we're checking out a film from 1943. That movie is Child Bride. Now, Child Bride is a cautionary film, as was a common genre of the time, trying to talk about the evils and the dangers of various social problems that were plaguing the U.S. Child Bride was trying to show the dangers of grown men wanting to marry children. I didn't know that was actually a problem in the U.S., but apparently it must have been enough of a problem for somebody to want to make a movie about it. I really don't know anything else about the plot itself, outside of it's going to try to tell us the rather obvious thing that it's wrong to want to marry children. But the only other thing I know is that at one point this movie was considered for Mystery Science Theater. I'm a big fan of Mystery Science Theater, and I know that they've covered some horrible shit. When both Kevin Murphy and Mike Nelson were asked about why this wasn't on Mystery Science Theater, they mentioned that the movie was just too awful to screen for Mystery Science Theater. And in terms of the content of the film, Kevin Murphy was quoted as saying that he needed a good cry in a shower after watching this thing. So I don't know if that's a good sign or not. That honestly sounds almost frightening if something was so bad it couldn't be featured on Mystery Science Theater, and the content was so nasty that Kevin Murphy needed a fucking cry in a shower. But hey, I'm totally willing to dive into this thing. I have no idea how bad this thing is really going to be, but if it's anything like the other cautionary tale PSA kind of films from the time period I've seen, it's going to be really fucking bad. So I am not even going into this one expecting it to be good. I'm honestly just curious exactly how big a fucking car wreck I'm really going to be getting myself into here. And the only way I'm going to find out, guys, how bad this thing really is if I shut up and I push play. And I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Child Bride. Okay, I find it kind of funny that this movie had to put a fucking disclaimer at the start of the movie, saying that yes, we are going to be looking at Appalachian hillbillies and their want to marry children. We are not doing it to mock them. We're just doing it to get rid of the practice of child marriage. I just find it funny that they had to openly come out and say we're not here to pick on hillbillies, but what they're doing is really fucked up. And I really don't think that Appalachian hill folk are going to give a fuck about a movie that's playing in theaters. They probably don't go anywhere near a theater. I'm sorry, guys. I just thought the whole thing was just a little bit weird. You know what I mean? So, let me see if I understand this. So, the teacher is trying to lead this holy crusade against child marriage in the mountains. Yet, she doesn't work it into her lesson plan at all. We actually have to see how she handles a class. Never once did she mention the evils of child marriage. Instead, we got to watch as a bunch of hill folk completely fail at basic spelling, which I thought was kind of funny. Guys, god damn it, guys. This thing is so laughably stupid, it almost hurts. But you know what? It actually is kind of fun in a shit movie sort of way, so I'm totally cool with this. You know, guys, I would really love to tell you what the fuck is going on in this scene. Unfortunately, the only thing which is lighting the shot is the torches that a bunch of these hillbillies are carrying. So, I can see a little bit of faint movement and a bunch of, torch lights, but nothing else. I know that they've kidnapped the teacher, probably to get her to stop talking about the evils of marrying fucking young'uns, but still, I don't know where the fuck they're taking her. I don't know how many of them are really there. I mean, if I had to judge by the torches, I'd say about 6 of them. But still, not a clue what the fuck's going on, because the shot is lit for shit. And it's actually making this scene a little bit difficult to sit through. I really can't wait until they move on to the next scene. You know, guys, I'm just going to say this straight up. The writing in this thing is awful. It really is. There's no way in hell I can spin it any other way but to say that it fucking sucks. But I'm going to say this right now. As bad as the writing is, it would probably be tolerable if the acting wasn't so biblically horrendous. This is some of the worst acting I've seen in a long fucking time, guys. And honestly, it's kind of making a bad movie a little bit fucking worse. I just kind of wanted to share that. Good news is there's less than 20 minutes left, so at least my suffering is almost over. But holy fuck, is the acting ever awful in this thing. Well, guys, that was Child Bride. Let's, wow, that was a bit fucked up. I think now I understand why Kevin fucking Murphy needed a good fucking cry and a shower. This makes me feel incredibly filthy. Anyway, let's talk about the movie. I need to discuss the ending for just a minute. There is going to be a spoiler here, but frankly, this movie is so old, I really don't think it much matters if I spoil the ending. So, the whole story, the whole inept story, like, builds up to this scumbag wanting to marry a 12-year-old. Alright, and there's this whole fucking setup for it. But it all basically boils down to he blackmails the kid's mom into, letting him marry the kid. So they go and they have the whole, ceremony and shit. The school teacher's boyfriend starts tacking up notices in town saying that, yeah, it is now illegal to marry children. And when she asks how long has that law been in place, her boyfriend, who came with the marshal, said it's been in place for 3 days now. The school teacher knows all about the marriage, because the whole town has been talking about it. At no time does she go to the marshal and go, hey, marshal, about this law. Funny thing, and you're probably going to laugh. There is some guy there's some guy who's going to marry a 12-year-old right now, and it's right in town. You could probably catch him. No, fuck that. She just starts hinting at possibly marrying her boyfriend and leaving the 12-year-old to the misery and the suffering of the scumbag who married her. And then a midget shoots him, but the kid thinks that her friend / kind of love interest was the one who fired the shot, and it's weird. Okay, it's kind of weird, it's kind of stupid, it's kind of pointless, and really, the ending didn't even have to happen. We could have totally had the marshal show up and find him and, take him in for marrying a fucking kid. But no, the school teacher who cared so much about this, cared so much about the horrors of children getting married, knows full well that there is a kid about to get married. There is a scene where she says that she knows that this is going to happen. She didn't bother to tell the marshal. She didn't bother to tell her boyfriend. She's just, I'm just so happy. It's been past for 72 hours, and Jenny's been married for 12 minutes. So, fuck her, I guess. Which, since she just got married, the honeymoon, that's probably gonna happen. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, goddamn, that fucking joke was a little bit dark. Anyway, I just wanted to comment on the ending. Let's talk about the movie itself. Writing. Well, I like how they had that little disclaimer at the start, saying that we aren't here to mock mountain folk. We're just here to point out that their big custom is kind of fucked up, and then proceeds to write every single mountain person as the most inept dipshit you will ever see. The only reason why the school teacher has any level of intelligence is because she was a mountain folk. These people are her fucking kin. But she went and she got a fucking education and now wants to try to fix the cultural problems of hill folk wanting to marry kids. That's, mind you, she really doesn't play a huge factor in the movie. You would think the character who wants to, make this stop being a thing would play a huge role. She's really only in the movie for about 6, maybe 7 minutes, which, granted, which in most cases wouldn't really sound like much, but this movie's only about an hour long, so she is in there a little bit, but goddamn, she really doesn't play a part in anything. Honest to God, you could have cut every scene involving her, and the movie would have still played out fine. I have a theory on that. My theory is that this movie didn't have the anti-child, marriage thing when it started, and it was just supposed to be a sleazy film mocking hillbillies, especially their want to marry children. Which is why if you could totally cut all of the school teachers' scenes, and it wouldn't change a goddamn thing. Or you could cut most of them. Like you could totally keep like the schoolhouse scene because that helps mock the fact that hillbillies can't fucking spell. But you could have cut all of the preaching about not marrying kids, and it wouldn't have altered the story in the slightest. So, and to kind of sort of help out with the whole, this thing here was just meant to be lurid fucking trash. There is a scene where our main character Jenny, who I should mention is 12, she goes skinny dipping, and it's an uncensored skinny dipping scene. So you see her bare ass naked as she's swimming around this pond. It just makes you feel filthy watching it. It serves no purpose other than to apparently turn on sickos who think that 12-year-olds are cute. It just felt so wrong. And naturally our villain sees her there and immediately wants to bone her and sets up the whole blackmail scheme in order to marry her. All of that plays out without the help of the school teacher and her preaching. So again, I'm taking a guess that all of that was thrown in at the last minute just simply to allow the goddamn thing to show in theaters. Our story is rather awful. I had a hard time keeping fucking straight which friggin' character was which, partially because there's almost no difference between characters. Every single male lead who is not, the male kid, all of them are completely interchangeable, except for the midget, who has the benefit of being a midget. But the other ones all look the same, sound the same, and talk the same. There is no difference betwixt them. So characters here are rather awful. The story itself, in terms of like conflict and everything, it is written in such a cornball fashion that you really are not going to be able to take a single scene of this thing seriously. Which honestly means that it's a fun movie to laugh at until you get to the fucking, until you get to the skinny fucking dipping scene, and then you want to die. But oh well. Everything else here in terms of writing is awful. We have zero character fucking depth, and our conflict is shit, and the message felt so tacked on. It felt so last minute tacked on, it almost hurts. Really, guys, writing here is awful, and I would probably, under most circumstances, I would have said that the writing is the worst aspect of this. But motherfucker, you have not heard these people attempt to act. I understand that it's normally difficult to nail a fucking, Appalachian hillbilly accent, because I know that there is a very specific, Appalachian accent you can totally, try to aim for. And everybody here is trying for it, and everybody's missing miserably. There are people here who, instead of putting on any kind of a traditional hillbilly accent, are putting on an Irish accent. There are at least 2 characters in this film who sound Irish. I didn't know that the Irish, upon coming to the U.S., were moving into the mountains and were marrying children. I really didn't know that that was a thing. So, just simply in terms of accents, everybody seems to be missing the fucking mark. There's about 15 different accents heard here, when you'd think there'd be one general accent for the whole village. But, oh well, I'm really not going to worry about that, because that really is minor, compared to the fact that nobody here can actually bring about any kind of actual feeling. Our fucking cast is trying desperately to play angry, or to play sad, or to play drunk, and none of them can do it. Honest to fuck. We have characters here who are supposed to act, drunk, and about the only thing which they do upon their character becoming drunk, they basically will just sort of stumble around a little bit, and that's it. Their fucking dialogue doesn't change at all. They don't fucking slur anything. It's basically like, oh, look at me, I'm sober. Oh, look at me, I'm drunk. Fancy that shit. That's literally how the acting is. Everything here, in terms of acting, is incredibly wooden and lifeless and dead. And It actually makes the movie almost laughable. The fact that we have a script that is this horrible and acting which is this bad, it all just comes together so nicely. Lighting. I understand I normally talk about camera work next, but god damn it, let's talk about lighting. I have to talk about the scene where our main villain and all of his buddies are hauling the school teacher off to have her tarred and feathered. Throughout most of that scene, unless we're following the midget and his dimwit friend, everything else is lit by simple torchlight. By that I mean, it's a very wide-angle shot, and you see like 4 or 5 torchlights, very tiny ones, about yay big compared to the scale of the screen, as they're basically like walking down a road, or they're like climbing down a mountain. You know, you can't see shit. And apparently, we were supposed to pick up, because we're told at one point that all of these guys who are hauling off the school teacher are in robes. They're not in robes. I'm going to jump to costuming for just a second. Our hooded fucking robes were literally basically just like cloth that like squares off on top, goes up about yay high, and it's essentially like a cloth like helmet that kind of like drapes over them like, you know, this, and leaves like a face opening about yay big for the actor to see out of. It looked horrible. You only see it in about 2 shots because everything else is so poorly fucking lit, but that looked horrendous, and I couldn't stop laughing at how awful it fucking looked when I finally got to see it. So, beyond that, you know, costuming's fine because everything else is all just tattered fucking clothing and coveralls. So I really can't complain too much. Lighting in most other shots is fine, but that scene goes on for so long. Some of those shots drag on for so long that it just drags the film down to almost nothing. So that right there is my one comment on lighting. Back over to camera work, where I usually go after writing, or after acting. Camera work here is fine. For the fucking most part, I couldn't tell you about the scene where they're dragging the teacher off, but again, I've already covered that. It's because the lighting was so goddamn bad. But everything else is at least competently shot. There actually are a couple of bits where the focus seems way off, but that's maybe about 2 shots in the entire movie. I'm really not gonna like damn the entire movie for 2 fucking blurry shots. I got a lot of other shit I can damn it for. Like the fucking skinny fucking dipping scene, or the horrendous writing, or the god-awful dialogue, or just dog shit acting. There's a lot of problems I can put before I talk about a couple of blurry shots. Let's just leave it at that and move on. Sound mix. Well, again, sound mix is at least competently done. I'm really not going to complain much about the sound mix here. Music. I found it kind of sort of cool. During the big wedding scene at the very end, that we get a dark, almost ominous version of the fucking wedding march playing in the background. It was incredibly creative, and it was kind of sort of cool. Almost every other piece of music is very bland. It really is, guys, like the kind of music you heard in almost every cheapo 1940s film. It really doesn't stand out. It really isn't anything special. If we're going to talk about music, I found it very, very weird that at the start of the school day, the kids are singing Jingle Fucking Bells, except the lyrics have been altered to talk about, you know, going to school. I am not kidding. If you guys are curious, you can find this movie on YouTube, and you can hear these kids as they're singing jingle bells while talking about going to school. They literally keep in jingle bells, jingle all the way in the song. And the rest of it is just them talking about going to school that day or some such shit. It was weird. It made no fucking sense. It was one of those bits that just, it was in there, I guess, for the sake of being there, and it just felt odd. So, musically, this thing kind of sucks, except for the dark version of the wedding march that played over the wedding scene. I actually thought that was kind of sort of creative. Ultimately, guys, can I recommend Child Bride? If you're looking for a bad movie to mock, by all means. Hopefully you'll find one that edits out the skinny fucking dipping scene, or at least shortens it, because there's some shots in there that are way too fucking long to really be anything other than just lurid fucking trash. But yeah, I can totally recommend it to watch, to laugh at, especially since it is a movie that has been in the public domain for years. You can find it on YouTube absolutely free, so you don't have to buy it. You don't have to find it on Netflix. You can just find it right here on YouTube for free. So by all means, search it out if you're looking for a bad movie to laugh at, or if you're looking for like a shit movie to riff on, if you're doing like a commentary riff series or something. This movie is horrible, and I cannot possibly recommend it for any other reason than to mock the ever-loving piss out of it, because it is just a horrible movie. Now, if you are looking for a good movie, shit, no. But if you found things such as Reefer Madness or Glenn or Glenda funny, and you really want to find another movie like that to, to fucking like tear into and mock, by all means, this sucker is prime material for that. Now, I want to go back a bit, because my minuscule research going into this mentioned how this thing was rejected for Mystery Science Theater, and how both Mike Nelson and Kevin Murphy said that they wouldn't use it for MST because it was so awful. Guys, I've watched a lot of Mystery Science Theater. I have seen some horrendous shit covered on Mystery Science Theater. This right here is almost high gold compared to most of the dog shit I've seen on Mystery Science Theater. So, I don't know what the hell Murphy and Nelson were talking about, because this thing would have been perfect for Mystery Science Theater. I, honest to God, think that it would have worked great as maybe half of like a double feature if they could find another hour-long film. Like, you could have totally dumped like this thing and Reefer fucking Madness together as like a fucking double feature on Mystery Science Theater, and it would have worked great. But oh well, we did not get this for Mystery Science Theater, and that makes me feel kind of sad. But the positive is, because it was never featured there, I totally had the opportunity to watch it here. And I kind of sort of wish that I hadn't, but I was curious because this thing is one of those movies that gets listed among some of the worst movies of all time. I can totally see why. Now, I was talking about Mystery Science Theater. I've got about 14, 15 episodes on DVD. I'm going to go find a few of those and watch them. I'm going to find some of the better ones, like maybe Overdrawn at the Memory Bank, because that's still my favorite episode of all time. Maybe I'll watch Hobgoblins or Space Mutiny. I don't know. I'm going to go find a few episodes, and I'm going to give them a watch. And with that, my friends, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care. I will see you all in the near future. Peace.